An Empire of Ice and Fire by Longclaw 1-6, Chapter 99, Valar Morghulis. They will come directly at us, John announced, pointing at the map spread over a crate serving as a makeshift table. He stabbed into the etching of Winterfell and their defences, but that will be the distraction. The flanks. It wasn't a question, Robb knowing as much as the other commanders did. They had gathered for an impromptu strategy session, using the lull in the fighting to their advantage. Already they could hear the screams and moaning of the wounded as Samwell and the other maesters patched them up. They will try to go around, or over them. Tyene Martell grimaced, knowing a potential disaster when she saw one. She commanded the right. We won't hold. Bronn had told her just as much. I don't know about Sabelo, but I am not waiting for the fuckers to swarm me. The heir to Hightower glared at her, but said nothing. He commanded the left. John made a sweeping motion with his finger. I will light the sides with dragonfire so that your flanks are protected. As soon as there is a breach, retreat back to Winterfell town or the middle defences. In this he would be glad for Sansa and Rickon. She had commissioned and he had overseen the completion of an extension of the Winterfell walls to connect with and surround the large town. Turned out to be a gift from the gods, and John, Robb, Jaime and the rest of the High Command earmarked the more depleted units for it. That area must hold, for it is our line of retreat. There will be no retreat, Tormund spat. It will end here. No one disagreed, though no one would say it aloud. Where do you want us? Sighing, John knew the free folk had endured murderous losses. Guard the castle. When all the men retreat inside, then you will be needed to protect the walls. Robb and the northern hoplites will guard the gates with the giants if we need to retreat, though. Sire! John turned to Lord Cracor. I wish our men could reform for another cavalry charge, but too many horses are blown or winded. We cannot in sufficient numbers. He looked ashamed of himself, as did Ser Jorah and the Dothraki blood riders. Lord Royce had fallen in the charge, the Vale now commanded by Sir Harold Harding. Meeting the gaze of each man, John continued, You did magnificently, my lords. Your words are appreciated, your majesty. He clasped his fist on his armour. We are ready to fight for the front. I cannot ask you to bleed more while there are fresher troops. The orders came so naturally. No man could deny that this man was their emperor. Take your forces and Wintertown at all costs. Nods all around. Corno! His Dothraki was terrible, so is mine, but bear with me. But John knew the Blood Rider would appreciate it. Vazirat, Jin, Grief, Winterdown, Aga Winterdown, Koi Ani Koi. Conho bowed. Ma'ana, Athiriya, Galajon. Ser Jorah, you stay here. I have no better place for you than alongside the men and women of Bear Island. The old knight bowed, tears in his eyes at the gift to him. Bran's eyes suddenly widened, glowing a light orange, but for a moment before changing back to grey. Flickering to John, a slight tremble racking his body. Only Mira noticed. My love? Please, wait, he answered softly, still looking intently at his brother the Emperor. Shaking hands with Jaime, Bronn and Grey Worm, John then pulled Robb into a tight hug. I will see you when it is done, brother. Just make sure you kill the Night King before they breach the walls, replied the Warden of the North. Father never did like messes in the courtyard. A bad joke, but the two did laugh. Anything to break the tension. Hand on Ice's hilt, Robb trotted off to the place of honour. The join between the Unsullied and the Northern Hoplites. The perch of the commander of the Winterfell defences. Sighing, John ran a hand through his hair before a hand clasped his shoulder. John, you need to go. Bran? He turned, meeting the Warlock's intense gaze. The most emotion he had seen in the boy since he became the Three-Eyed Raven. What? Get on Rhaegal and go. Take to the skies and wait for the Night King. His voice was low, so that only they could hear him, but that did not negate its urgency. Please, John. Looking at Rhaegal, then at Balerion, Leonaris and Rhaella in succession, The dragons perched either on the ground or clung to the great towers of his familial home. Jon could sense their nervousness, their fear, taking on the enemy that had stolen and corrupted their beloved mother. "The Night King will come to me, Bran. Let the dragons rest." His grip on Jon's shoulder tightened. Bran shook his head, visions and green sight bringing him pain. "Trust me, Jon. You will be better off in the skies." Terror softened. The younger Stark sibling pleaded with his blood. "Please, you will not want to witness what is to come." Jon finally understood what Bran was saying. His brother was right. The very thought tore into his heart, as if for the third time. A gentle nudge caught his attention. He glanced down into two red eyes. "Hey, boy," Jon smiled, stroking Ghost's head. The direwolf looked fearsome in his padded armor, specially made for him to protect him. Behind him, Nymeria hovered, clad similarly. "Protect our home, all right?" Ghost whimpered but nuzzled Jon's side. Watching the Emperor climb upon Rhaegal, Bran called out to him, "Jon!" Jon settled on the back of the green dragon, eyes drawn back to Bran. "Remember what I told you at Last Hearth." Recognition flashed over Jon. "I will not let you down. Do the same. Make our father proud." Nodding, Jon shot into the air as Rhaegal ascended with the beat of his massive wings. Other dragons erupted in roars, wings unfurling to join their father and brother in the skies. Even in the face of impending death, Mira thanked the old gods she could witness such majesty. "My love, what did you tell Jon at Last Hearth?" She knew her lover, and his powers. The young Stark only smirked, spotting Benjen motioning to them. "Let's go." No one noticed them as they slipped away. "Seven hells!" It had come suddenly, a vortex of snow and fog that draped over the field. "I can't see in this fucking mist!" If Sansa was perturbed by the refined proper lady of Winterfell using such vulgar language, she didn't show it. Hells, she thought the same way. "They're planning something," she responded. The two women had refused to join the other non-combatants in the Great Hall, insisting on coordinating the movement of supplies to their defenders. They did it well, if adding to the stress and consternation of Robb, Tyrion and Ser Davos, all who insisted they make their way to safety. Sansa scoffed internally. There was no safety in Winterfell. "Reminds me of my smuggling days," Davos remarked. "Always preferred the fog. Kept us hidden." "I guess the fuckers think along the same line." "Oh, they will attack soon. No doubt about that." Tyrion looked ridiculous in the plate armor of House Lannister, but the archers atop the main walls and battlements only found it endearing. He had guts, according to the men. The only question is both how and when exactly. The sentry horn atop the highest tower boomed its mournful herald, only seconds before a sea of glowing, malevolent blue started to appear. Faint in the intense fog and howling snow, but stretching across the length of the battlefield. "My gods!" breathed Marjorie, the Rose of Winterfell gripping Sansa's hand for support. "Took the words right out of my mouth." Tyrion couldn't help but quip. No humour tinging his voice, however. Pushing her way through the lines of Lannister bannermen, Brienne reached the vanguard. Wordlessly, she took her place beside the Queen's shield. "Shouldn't you be protecting Lady Stark?" Jaime asked, tilting his head to look at her. "She would want me here, on the front lines," Brienne met his gaze. "As to why I am by your side, Queen's shield, I am here of my own accord." Craning her neck, she spotted the shorter, trembling boy. "Tommen, right?" The boy nervously turned to her. "Aye, my lady." Brienne smiled. "You faced the dead already, my lord, correct?" Tommen gulped. "I did, yes. Don't know how I survived." "Here's some advice. Stay close to your uncle." She caught Jaime's stare. "If you're cut off, stay close to me. All right?" He smiled. "All right." Beside him, Jaime smiled as well. Before she turned back to stare ahead, the Queen's shield darted and placed a small peck on her lips. Even in the worst of chills, it warmed her like a pleasant hearth. Below, Tightening his cloak to ward off the chill, Rob hid his fear. Though he had faced them before, there was still nothing that could prepare him for this.
Let them attack us, but not this.
They just waited, obscured by the wind and the fog, into a formless mass of untold thousands. Tens of thousands. 100,000? 2? Ready, my lord? Podrick Payne asked, clad exactly as a northern knight, fully integrating himself into the culture of his beloved.
As I'll ever be, Pod.
Drawing ice, Rob held it high.
Sons of the living! Are we ready? How? How? Zombie to us!
Valyrian piercing the din, Grey Worm heard his order carried out. 6,000 shields clashing together. An order barked by dozens of other lords of Dornish, Giscari, Westermen, Reachmen, Crownlanders. The entirety of the world locked shields against death itself. But still, the glowing mass refused to budge. Hanging there. Time slowing to an impermeable crawl. Driving even the toughest minds mad. The only noise out of the void began the mournful howl of the winds of winter. It was Sansa who saw it first. "Someone's approaching!" she shouted, hoping the defenders would hear her. A single pair of blue, murky among the swirling ice and snow, slowly making its way across the field. Separate from the main mass as the fog began to dissipate. Snows still impossibly thick, but revealing the army of the dead in all its terror. Or majesty, if one's matter of opinion differed. Over 200,000 corpses, lined shock-still near the site of the first line of defences. All shapes and sizes. Wildlings, ripped fur still draped over their decaying bodies. Night's watchmen, black cloaks distinctive. Westerosi knights and men-at-arms, dried blood still coating their armour. The black leathers of Unsullied, and the more numerous light browns of auxiliaries. And countless skeletons, and half-rotted monsters unable to be identified. Giants and shadowcats. Bears and saber-tooths. Hordes of ice spiders. White walkers assembled, each commanding a legion of the dead. But it wasn't this that brought ice to their very souls. A single figure, marching through the snow. Petite and unassuming. White coat nearly masking her in the winter storm. Silver hair billowing in the wind. Spyglass trained on the figure. Sansa felt herself go numb.
No, it can't be. By the gods.
Davos wanted to throw up. Tyrion, paling a pure white, did throw up. Marjorie, shaking, couldn't stand to see it, racing towards the Great Hall and whatever isolation she could find. Doubling over, Rob forced Podrick to pull him upright, lest he crumble in the snow like a rag doll. Close by, Grey Worm felt as if the howling storm skewered him with each gust, slamming against his frame. The same running through the entire Imperial army. Word spread like wildfire. It was the Night Queen. Eyes burning the cold fury of death, a dark scowl etched on the skin of ice. Gaze directed straight at the gates of Winterfell, beyond the lines of men and defences, stepping over bloody corpses and broken bones without a second thought. The face, instantly recognisable as that of Daenerys Targaryen, the Empress and Mother of Dragons, monarch beloved by all, even those that had once fought against her. And here she stood, not their great ruler or kind woman, but a monster. Get back to your command, Sir Davos. No emotion in her tone, but a fine rage, barely concealed. Sansa left no room for disagreement. Now. Breath hitching, feeling a tear roll down his cheek, Davos looked at the hand. Just do it. End her suffering. Anger surged through Sansa. Anger at the gods. Anger at the shit her brother and sister had to endure. Anger at the Night King. The monster that took Daenerys and turned her into one of them. Tyrion, are you quite done? She spat. The imp wiped the specks of vomit from his lips. Yes. Take her down. He blinked. You sure? Don't try me. Take her down. Aye. Tyrion cleared his throat. Knock! Over 200 bowmen filled a dragon-class tipped arrow onto their bows. Loose! Unlike before, the archers only had one target to hit. Firing literally over open sights, the archers weren't skilled marksmen, trained only to aim for the packed masses. The arrows sprinkled onto the churned-up ground. Most missing wildly. Half a dozen hit their mark. Hold! Tyrion barked. Every soul in the Imperial army craning their necks and muttering prayers to dozens of deities for the nightmare to be over. Inspecting her wounds, the Night Queen calmly pulled out each one, dropping them to the ground like twigs, continuing her march forward. Sansa's legs gave out from under her, hearing Tyrion shout something. A volley of dragonglass, and she survived. Feeling two men lift her up and carry her towards the keep, but the only thing she could think of was what she had witnessed. There is no hope. Something snapped in Grey Worm, seeing the woman he had sworn to, that had treated him like a man and not a thing. The one who had given him a purpose, reduced to something even worse than a slave. Dani, Nagi release, Ahen, Ahora Balama! Anguished cry echoing in all directions, he levelled his spear and hurled it at the still walking form of the Night Queen, knowing from the moment it sallied forth that it would strike home. Barely a split second. One moment, the spear sailed towards the Night Queen, and the next found her grasping the shaft, throwing it to the ground as she did the arrows. Halting, staring at the lines of men and women, so consumed by anguish and terror, the Night Queen slowly raised her arms, allowing the mystic energy to swirl inside her like the harshest of winter storms, unknowingly stoking the fire deep in her core. It started with a twitch. One fallen soldier, illuminated by a red-orange fire left over from Rhaella's run attack. The twitching turned to shaking, the corpse spasming until its eyes shot open, not with the humanity of who the man was in life, but a blue glow of death, happening thousandfold across the battlefield, thousands rising on the command of the Night Queen, joining the further tens of thousands behind them. Robb, steeling himself, grabbed ice in both hands. This is it, boys! We fight or we die! How? How? Arms still extended, the scowl had morphed into a malevolent smirk. Watch, Daenerys. Watch as I destroy it all. The Night Queen brought her arms together, the silent command sending her newly raised whites and the entire army behind her, charging for the walls with an ear-shattering screech that were even heard by the gods themselves. Line break. Hooting a cry of desolation and sorrow, Rhaegal soared with his brother and sisters close behind. Clutching his back, Jon peered down to see the battlefield, illuminated by thousands of torches and the hundreds of thousands of glowing blue eyes of the dead. He winced. Absolute chaos. The dead had crashed against the defences. Sheer weight of numbers against the elite heavy infantry formations of Westeros and Essos. Hand cannons and archers firing their destructive payloads indiscriminately into the void. There was literally no chance they would miss. An orange glow clashed through hundreds, single-handedly punching a large breach through the entire swarm, several small flickers of flame charging out before the dead closed around it. Bran. What was he... Where was he going? What was his angle? John looked around him, gazing up into the clouds and around at the swirling black night. No sign of him.
Can't sit here with our dicks in our asses, boy. Dive!
Rhaegal roared, shooting downwards. Balerion, Rhaella, and Leoneris roaring and diving along with him. Closer and closer the ground emerged, oceans of blue magnifying into pinpricks of eyes. John's voice was full of fury. Dragaras! Dragons arranged in a line of 4 across. The dragon fire erupted out, slamming into the snowy ground with a pure ferocity that incinerated thousands before John pulled them back.
That'll slow them down, he whooped. Balerion, torch and burn to the right. Sansenya, Rhaella, torch and burn the left.
Each dragon gave a hoot of confirmation.
Fly over, boy,
he commanded Rhaegal. Hopefully he would finally draw the Night King from the abyss he had crawled into. And that was when he saw it. Saw her. Felt his heart shatter. John unable to look away, even though he couldn't bear the scene below him. Each dragon, catching his pain, screamed a mournful cry as well. Rhaegal banked over the battlefield. She was at the thick of the fighting. Saracen drawn. Valyrian steel covered in the ice of the deepest hell. The Night Queen fought alongside her slaves, in the middle of a breach in their defences, one she had created single-handedly. Howling winds brought by her machinations, tossing aside the staves and earthworks like kindling. A guard of 2 walkers and the largest Westerland knights, thick plate armour now serving her, and not the living to which they had given their lives. Many a soldier bugged out in pure fear at the sight of her. Their beloved Empress, now a soulless monster hacking and slicing through them. Urging the whites onwards into a charnel house, the Night King held a smug satisfaction, acting as a slave master, perverting the very ideals on which the Dragon Empress built her rule. Disemboweling a screaming northerner, the Night Queen spotted something. There, fighting one of the large whites, was the Unsullied, the one Daenerys Targaryen knew as Grey Worm, a beloved advisor. I will enjoy killing him, she thought with a malevolent glee. Twirling Saracen, she prepared to charge at Grey Worm. A flash of Valyrian steel forced her to bring the sword up, just barely blocking the furious left swing. Icy coating shattering as she stumbled back, blue eyes narrowing. Before her was the panting northerner, pain in his eyes.
I'm sorry, Khaleesi.
Jorah Mormont. I will enjoy this greatly. Sir Jorah charged, Heartsbane swinging with a reluctant ferocity at the Night Queen. But she was quick. Leaping into the air and landing 2 yards away, Saracen collecting ice and deflecting the blow. Clashing against the Valyrian steel in a furious strike and counter-strike. Behind, the Unsullied took advantage, pushing forward, driving the dead out of the breach, plugging the hole with a ruthless drive. A silent prayer in their commander that Jorah could succeed where he had failed. Blade cutting across the air, harmlessly swishing above her flowing hair as she ducked, Jorah was forced back from the Night Queen's relentless strikes. His aging reflexes weakening against her. Barely able to move the greatsword to block her assaults. 3 for every 1 he could form. The icy Saracen suddenly caught him off guard, slashing across his front as the Night Queen kicked him in the lower abdomen, knocking him back 5 feet into the snow. She smirked and advanced on him. The next thing the Night Queen knew, she was blown back by at least 20 yards. Imperial cannon firing a full load of dragon glass and powder point-blank range. Harmless to her, but one pretty intense door-knocker. She stumbled, falling back into the snow when trying to stand. Around her the swarm parted like a rock around water. Her guard was upon her in an instant.
My queen, the dragon rider. He is here.
Looking up, the Night Queen could make out 4 shapes in the sky. 1 dark against the clouds, 3 lighter. They were gaining in altitude, fresh from an attack run leaving red-orange infernos upon the ground. She swore she could make out a pair of grey eyes staring at her even in the darkness. One that drove her to fury, and a tiny flicker of flame to life. Spear.
Here, my queen.
She took the spear, eyes not leaving the shape lighter in the sky. There were 3, but the largest one drew her attention. A shape that howling ice inside her demanded the death of. Demanded her to kill. Smirk on her face, she yanked back her arm and let the spear fly.
John saw it immediately. Higher, boy, higher!
Rhaegal roared and lurched upwards with a flap of his mighty wings. Spear just passing, shooting off in the distance.
Danny,
he begged, wind burning his eyes as Rhaegal climbed higher towards the clouds.
Danny, please! Fight it!
Behind him, Balerion roared in agony, the other 3 dragons scattering. She wore no disappointment, merely grabbing another spear, ready to fire it directly at the climbing beast before it hit the clouds.
Danny, please!
A pained screech.
Fight it! You will die, monster!
Suddenly the fire reared its head, engulfing her core in the heat in the character of the doom of Valyria. The Night Queen dropped the spear, falling over, falling to her knees from the intensity. Nothing she had ever felt before. The heat so intense she could feel her own skin starting to melt.
You will not touch him!
It roared inside of her. Daenerys Targaryen roared inside of her. The Night Queen roared back, drawing a swirling vortex of winter to fight back against the flames. Guard dragging her to the rear, all while the army of the dead charged around her. The clouds were thundering, blinding, snow and ice everywhere, biting and burning Jon's eyes. From Rhaegal's screeches, the dragon was in the same boat. But they were safe. No threat from ice spears. From Daenerys?
No, not Daenerys.
That monster was not his Dany. Rhaegal screeched in pain as a gout of blue flame blasted into him, nearly knocking Jon off and sending the dragon into a series of frantic flaps to stay in control. Both watching as the great Valthrax plummeted through the clouds, Night King atop his back. As soon as it came, the great dragon disappeared, leaving nothing but the piercing cold of the blinding gusts of snow and the even more piercing cold of the fire. Jon's mouth contorted into an enraged snarl, dragon fire burning within him.
Jeddah, Najat, Esanagon, Rhaegal, Elegon!
He felt not winter's winds as the dragon roared and plunged after Valthrax. Line break. Longsword hacking at him, Bran blocked it with his own blade, sparks shooting out as the steel was sliced clean in half. The warlock buried a blast of energy into the White's heart, punching straight through the seashell etching of House Westerling emblazoned on the armor plate. The White collapsed bonelessly onto the snow, Bran leaping over the body to run his sword through the snarling maw of a saber-tooth, extinguishing the blue glow. A White charged at him to the right, bones of its skeleton clunking together with a sword raised. But just as Bran turned to face it, a flaming flail smashed into its face, bones crumpling to the ground.
Looks like we've gotten out alive,
Benjen remarked, letting the chain still in his blackened hands. Removing her twin dragonglass daggers from a White at least 3 times her size, Leaf brushed the snow out of her hair. They let us pass! A dozen men, the survivors of the Brotherhood, gathered around, most rallying their weapons or nursing wounds that dotted their bodies. Half the number that charged out of Winterfell, and a fifth of what they started the battle out with. Someone wants to fight us, or at least Bran.
Aye, and I know who.
All eyes went to Beric, or rather where his hand was pointing, turning their blood to ice, faced with a sight that would test the resolve of even the bravest man.
We can take care of them, my queen, the walker told her. You may rejoin the fight, or go find the Great One.
She watched each of the men and women lining up to challenge her, but only one stood out. One that the Night Queen felt the flicker respond to, care about. No, I must do this myself. If the fire would try to kill her, she'd single-handedly kill everyone Daenerys Targaryen cared about, until the last flicker of her screamed in agony for death. Thickening the ice upon Saracen, the Night Queen waited, baiting them to attack. The winds screamed. Hail of snow, the only thing standing between the line of walkers, the Night Queen at its centre, and the Brotherhood. Bran stood still, eyes locking with the monster infecting the love of his brother's life. Mira notched a dragonglass arrow, ready to let it loose at the demons in front of her. Benjen lit his chains, twirling one end on his right. Beric, the flames crackling on his blade, clasped the hilt with both hands.
Lord of Light,
he breathed, praying for all of them.
Guide us true in this fight we are about to endure. Let the demons feel the wrath of your flames. Shine your light upon us in this dark night, and full of terrors. For the darkness is everywhere, and the terrors are before us.
Less talk, Dondarrion, Benjen hissed. More fight. Screaming into the air, the Brotherhood charged, flaming blades darting in the air as Mira loosed an arrow straight for the Night Queen. She dodged it expertly, leading her walkers with the speed of cheetahs into the fight. Ice meeting flaming blades coated with dragonglass, the Brotherhood taking on each a walker 2 at a time, but the speed and indefatigable stamina of the walkers more than making up for it. Mira fired another bolt, this one exploding into ice as it hit a walker's shoulder. The victory was short-lived, as another was almost upon her, forcing her to draw her blade while Jojen charged to defend her. Out of nowhere, a walker stabbed its spear into another, immediately drawing attacks from the third as the stricken demon shattered into ice. Suddenly, turning to each other, 2 more walkers charged up the turncoat only for a figure to emerge out of the snow, screaming a guttural battle cry as the halberd crashed into the 2 of them, the dragonglass-coated steel of Gendry Baratheon's warhammer clashing with the spear of the 5th walker. With a screech, the demon swiped at the turncoat walker, hitting air but echoing a crack through the air, a glittering red jewel sinking into the snow. The face of a White Walker disappeared, replaced with the narrowed eyes of Arya Stark. Stunned for a moment, the walker snarled and charged. Benjen drew the attention of a giant walker, towering a head above him, wielding twin bastard swords that clanged against the spinning chains. Dodging every attack that came his way, worse off than Leaf, matching the moves of the walker she battled, 2 dancing in a vicious draw. But nothing could compare to the battle between the Night Queen and the Three-Eyed Raven. Ice clashing with mystic fire, 2 sides of the oldest magic battling. Bran lunged, the Night Queen leaping out of the way and bringing down Saracen with a dark fury. To which Bran grabbed the enchanted blade, magic coating his hand, letting it shatter the ice.
Free yourself, Daenerys!
You will die! The Night Queen screamed, punching him in the stomach and sending him sprawling. No! She stilled, blue glow of her eyes changing into a dark red, skin losing its icy hue as an orange flame surged forth, toppling her into the snow, giving Bran an opening as he unleashed his energy to trap her in a powerful hold. Hands burning, Bran felt his head searing in pain, dipping into his magical core to continue the assault. Daenerys' eyes began to flicker, red changing back to blue, then to red and back to blue. Her weak, feeble protest rejuvenating the strength as she fought inside his grasp. The Three-Eyed Raven faced his greatest resistance since the first long night millennia before. "Uncle!" he screamed through gritted teeth, feeling his own legs start to numb, magic within him depleting. "I can't hold!" His nephew's shouts reaching him, Benjen leapt at the walker, strength almost inhuman as the icy magic within him surged within. Numb to the pain of the icy burn on the walker's skin, wrenching the arm back as he wrapped the chain around the walker's neck, looking straight into the monster's fearful eyes, realizing that moment that the same walker had left him for dead years before. A dark smirk crossed his lips as they both realized it.
"Fuck you!"
Benjen breathed, grasping the chain with both hands and pulling, shattering the walker's face as Benjen's burned hand crumbled into blackened chunks of flesh, leaving the chain in the snow. He charged for Bran. "Stay down, bitch!" screeched the Night Queen. "You will fucking die!" roared the fire. The Night Queen's screams grew, contorting in agony as she continued to fight against the three-eyed raven's holds. "Wait, Daddy!" Bran yelled, the icy skin glowing a furious red. "Wait! Bran, behind you!" He turned his head, hand blindly reaching out to grasp Benjen's stump, catching one last smile. "Valar Morghulis!" With a plunge of his hand, Benjen punched through his skin like a spear and pulled out his dragonglass core. Vision fading to black. Bran suddenly felt a surge of energy thundering through him. Howling in fury, he leapt onto the Night Queen. "Monster!" Hand hovering over her superheated heart. "House Stark sends its regards!" Energy exploding, Bran felt his world spin as he collapsed onto the snow. Roaring like the Baratheon he was, Gendry brought Warhammer down in a powerful downward swing, fury snapping the walker's skin in two. Fury snapping the walker's spear in two. But as he readied to crash the great weapon against its side, the walker leapt back, drawing into the snow and ice around it to form a long sword and shield. Gendry steeled himself, darting forward. Each mad swing of Warhammer crashed against the ice shield, the shield shattering only to reform again from the howling gale, blue eyes twinkling darkly as the walker charged again. Arya was tiring. Even with her stamina, it was hard to match the sheer relentlessness of her opponent, let alone with the little stag weighing her down. She fought with a weapon clasped tightly in each hand. The walker before her, blood of her fellow living coating its beard, thrust the spear at her only for cat's paw to shoot up, ice slicing on Valyrian steel, shooting harmlessly off to the side. But a quick jerk of the arms found the shaft slamming into Arya's face, forcing her down. "Arya!" Face on fire, eyes wide, Arya brought her blades up just as the walker exploded into ice, a glowing orange blade buried into its chest, just before it dissolved. The other, shocked in surprise, but for a moment, gave Gendry the opening he needed. He swung, clubbed and knocked down the sword arm before the head of Warhammer shattered his face. The Lord Baratheon fought the urge to collapse into the snow. Not time to even blink before Arya saw her brother's outstretched hand, grabbing her sword arm and pulling her up. "Looks like I finally beat you, sister." A small smile adorned his face. Arya glared, spitting blood onto the snow. "Doesn't count!" She was then enveloped by a hug from Mira, furs torn and face pale but otherwise unhurt. "I'm fine, Mira. I'm fine," she told her friend. "And hopefully soon, sister." "Thank the gods!" She grabbed an arrow and notched it on her bow, just in case. Behind, Beric and the others of the Brotherhood kept their swords drawn and ready. "Let's get back to Winterfell." "We'll have to swing around Wintertown," theorized Beric. "Castle's probably overrun." Bran cut him off. "You go. Take Arya and her babe to safety." Arya blinked while Gendry and Mira's eyes widened in surprise and shock. "I must go. Fulfill my duty as Hodor and Uncle Benjen did theirs." Looking at him, Arya suddenly noticed neither were in the group. "What? What happened to them?" She could see Gendry searching, tearful eyes on her, but now was not the time. "Only death may pay for life." The three-eyed raven felt his own bout of sadness overtake him, reminding him that he was human, but duty overrode. "They fulfilled their duty, sister, and now I must fulfill mine." Quickly Arya hugged him. Bran kissed her brow. As soon as they pulled away, he was met by Mira, who kissed him passionately. "Be careful, my love. Don't be a hero." "I can't promise you that, Mira, but we'll see each other soon." Giving the woman he loved one last smile, his grey eyes disappeared into a glowing orange, blade igniting in his hand as he raced into the darkness of the swirling gale. Line break. The black expanse of the Wolf's Wood emerged below, blemished not with the fires and greasy smoke of the battle raging in the distance, casting a low, orange glow over the trees that he had often rode through with Robb and Theon, Arya and Bran having joined them once they were of age, and the former managing to sneak away from their mother's watchful eyes. Happy memories, filling his icy heart with a pleasant warmth. Noticing the dark form of the undead dragon flying off into the void, the light of the flames began to engulf Winterfell, exposing it as riderless. The ice returned, joined by a raging dragon fire. Rhaegal growled and hissed in fury. He was there, sullying the beautiful woodland of his childhood home with his malevolence.
Tigan, no Harbrina,
the green dragon responded with a hoot, banking sharply into a clearing. Rhaegal landed with a thud, immense bulk kicking up a large cloud of dirt and snow. He tilted his shoulder down, allowing Jon to leap off onto the ground. A deep chill hit him, greater than any winter wind he had ever experienced in his childhood memory of his. Breathing icing as soon as it left him, Jon knew that the Night King was close. His very presence turned the serene woodland into something from the land of always winter. Snow and ice howling, whipping around the tree trunks in a furious gale. Drawing Longclaw from his scabbard, Jon moved to enter the coldest part of the wolfwood, when a gentle nudge hit his side. Turning his head, he rested it on Rhaegal's snout, gently petting the dragon.
Wait here, boy. Come if I call. Find your siblings. If anything else happens, go.
A low whine left him.
I know.
Stroking him one last time, Jon ignited his blade, pushing into the woods. Jon's eyes flickered about, searching for blue eyes in the darkness, gazing upon him ready to ambush him as at last Hearth. Steps wary as he advanced through the snow, trudging ever forward, forcing himself through the gale, Longclaw a stubborn torch, a life-giving light in the darkness, passing tree after tree, stripped of its leaves, all covered in ice and snow. He emerged to a small lake, somewhere he and his siblings would love to water their horses. Surrounded by rocks and trees, perfect hiding places for wights and walkers. His eyes peeled for movement, and quick, but for naught. There was nothing, no sign of anything. Only the Night King, seated upon a rock, silent and brooding, reminding Jon of their shared blood.
You couldn't live with your own failure.
Jon's boots crunched against the fine snow. The gale around him seemed to part, leaving a circle of calm that enveloped the two direwolves. Nothing but a light snow sprinkling upon them.
And where did that lead you?
The Night King snorted, not looking up.
Back to me.
Jon's grey eyes narrowed as he approached the seated demon, soon meeting blue as the Night King looked up. Both clad in their armour, Marden the standard leathers of the north, Jon in his Valyrian steel plate and cuirass. Both light, both agile, two unfrozen, protected from the elements by their very blood.
We were both brooders,
Soren and I. Maren's laugh echoed through Jon's mind.
At heart Stark brooded just as Rhaegar did. A fact that saved your life, Jaehaerys. Can't kill us that easy,
Jon replied, beginning to circle around, positioning himself away from any obstacles between him and his foe.
A dragon is no slave, not even to death. And bring fire and blood to the gods themselves. But I am no god. I am wrath, the bane of the gods, the antidote to life.
He looked to the side, profile visible to Jon.
I gave you mercy, a chance to be with our family for eternity. And yet you chose to reject it.
It would have been so easy. Charge forward and swing at the Night King, not even looking at him. Approach temptingly open. Defenseless. But Jon knew better. A fighter always underestimated. He knew full well when not to make the same mistake.
Sorry to disappoint you there. Ango Haragano.
Ice and snow from the gale began to surround him, solidifying into the mass of a massive greatsword.
My mercy was a miscalculation, but I am glad. I know what I must do.
Marden stood, lazily slicing at the air.
I will make you watch as I kill every last man, woman, and child in Winterfell. Add to those you love into my army.
The ice continued to flow to him, forming a translucent helmet in the shape of a Kingsguard.
And then, when Daenerys and I have reduced the entire world to an endless winter, I will turn you into one of us, purge you of your memories, until you know not what you have lost, only the world as it can be, a world of peace, built on death.
His hands tightened around Longclaw's hilt.
I,
The Night King turned to face him, great sword waiting.
A world free from suffering, where even a dragon obeys.
Longclaw twirled in his wrist, firmly clasping against his left hand.
Ealizadrizes gostadayu bisgarvidi.
And Jon charged. Sparks shot across the snow as Longclaw met the ice greatsword. An initial downward thrust was blocked, only for quick reflexes to twirl the flaming blade into a clash against the Night King's midsection. Bastard sword light and swift, enough to match Jon's fluid skill set. But the Night King darted back, flames only grazing his icy skin. Cold blue eyes narrowed, watching, calculating. It only lasted for a second. Even of ice, the great sword was heavy. Wielded by man, there wasn't much to anyone not Sir Duncan the Tall or Gregor Clegane that could do to improve the range of motion. But the Night King was no longer a man. Rolling his arm, the blade dashed at Jon in a savage uppercut, forcing him back. It twirled around to meet Longclaw in another clash, the two dancing around each other, the Night King lashing out with strong thrusts and swings, while Jon dodged and jinked, using his dexterity and the lightness of his blade to dart in a flurry of strikes.
You fight well,
came the taunt, not even breaking a sweat as the great sword came down again and again. Jon's grip on his sword weakening with each onslaught.
As great as my brother.
Sword battered aside by Jon's after thrusting at the man. The Night King threw a punch, one that connected with Jon's shoulder as the Emperor preemptively charged, sent a mass slamming headfirst into Marden, forcing him back, only for the great other to spin his sword back into place, parrying effortlessly furious slashes from Jon.
But I was always the best, Jon Snow.
Fists clenching over the hilt of his blade, Jon snarled as he attacked again, dragonfire burning hot in his eyes, in his muscles. His movements quick, body leaned forward in a charge, knocking his opponent off balance. Flames crackling as he whipped Longclaw back and forth, attacking from all angles, forcing his enemy back through the snowdrifts. Furious slashes blocked by the Night King's quick movements, ice holding firm against his fire. As quick as Jon was, the Night King was quicker, making Jon flinch back with an elbow cut, stalling the Emperor's momentum as he brought his great sword around and back again.
You are but a boy, Jaehaerys Targaryen.
The dark smirk didn't falter, taunting him as he began to hold his ground, pushing Jon back.
My brother was a fool for putting his power with you.
The smirk widened as the fire burned in Jon's eyes. Longclaw chopped through the air, Jon bringing it down with the flames of old Valyria, only to miss, slicing through the snowdrift. Sidestepping with the speed of a warlock, Marden Stark cracked the hilt of his icy blade against Jon's head, followed by a punch to the gut, sending Jon tumbling to the ground over 4 yards away, knocking the wind out of him, leaving the Emperor wheezing and coughing as he tried to suck in breath after breath of the freezing air, stabbing at his lungs. A malevolent chuckle filled his mind. Slowly, the gaze of a hunter playing with his wounded prey, the Night King approached.
You have the blood of the dragon and the blood of the wolf, Jaehaerys, but you never were one. Gasps slowing to deep sucks of air. Jon scrambled for the now extinguished Longclaw, but Marden was quicker, crunching his booted feet over Jon's hand, pulling out a wince of anguish. The best blood on the earth, but still a bastard. He raised his blade, ready to finally strike down his enemy, finish off his brother's spirit for eternity. All the power in the world, and you're still Jon fucking Snow. A distant firelight glinted in the ice as the Night King brought down his sword. Clang! Smirk disappearing, the malevolent, icy blue eyes flickered to the iced-over steel blocking his own blade, a force nearly matching his own, matching Jon's, stubbornly holding back his attempted blow. Fury welled within him, only to change to an empty shock at the wielder. The offending third party twirled across, the Night King just barely blocking the noose swings, shattering the ice coating the sword, leaping back several yards with his inhuman strength and agility, leaving a mass of snow between him and the ghost, eyes wide and mouth dropping in shock. Saracen twirling, drawn back, the violet orbs of Daenerys Targaryen stared back at him, slow breaths pushing in and out of her lungs, cheeks red with life. She stared down her tormentor, the king of death that had so nearly destroyed her, dragonfire roaring unobstructed within her soul for the first time in weeks. Jon stared, his own jaw slack. He hauled himself up with Longclaw in hand. Sensing his eyes on her, Daenerys turned to him, a look of warmth, of love, of a promise that she was there. One Jon mirrored with a smouldering passion of a dragon. At long last, expression of love between the blood of old Valyria and the inhospitable chaos of winter. Followed by dragonfire, violet and grey, engulfed in the fury of the doom of Valyria, determined to face the Night King. He who drove them to the embrace of death, only for them to return with fire and blood. They turned to their foe. Ice materialized from nowhere to coat Saracen's sleek steel. Power of winter answering the dragon's call. Longclaw's smoky blade reigniting with a crackle and roar of the divine Valyrian flame, imbued by the wolf so chosen to wield it. The Emperor and Empress taking their stances, facing the Night King. The last dragons, the bringers of the dawn. Ice and fire. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that. Oh my god, that was intense. Bran and Benjen, Arya nearly dying, and Dany fighting them and trying to kill Ser Jorah and Grey Worm, not to mention Bran as well. Though, one little bit, Jaime and Brienne still getting a kiss, love that. And I love how she was almost maternal towards Tommen, telling him that if he separated from Jaime that he should stick with her. That's flipping cute. And now Daddy's back! Yes! Goodbye, Night Queen. You will not be missed. Yes. Oh, I'm buzzing. Waiting for the next chapter. If I have this right, the twins might show up then. Oh boy, are they gonna be grounded. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified for whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Take care, my guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Bye!